Okay, we're live. We're live. Okay, you are live.
And you're on.
Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Costa. Hey guys, I am a lead board member for Independent California and also Secretary of State for CALEXIT, which means my role is mostly to get old California people that work for Independent California dropped off, bring them back on, and bring new people, and make sure that everybody is on board and getting all the organization, as Hal said, to work together, even local organizations, women's groups, any civic groups or anything, to bring them all together for the Independent California movement and CalExit. So when I say CalExit, we represent everyone, whether it's Independent California, CNP, CFC, all those organizations are under the umbrella, for as far as I'm concerned, under the umbrella of CalExit. So today, what I'd like to address is something that has happened recently in current events, which is the assassination of the top military general in Iraq, Soleimani. And the reason this is pertinent to the CalExit conversation is because it affects us, and it shows us the patterns, as Marcus has pointed out, the patterns of the past, which are going to lead to the patterns of the future. So what really baffles me, but not to my surprise, is the media. The media has gone. Their main talking point has been about this: is why now? Why do it now? When we had Iran, it's been 30 years since we've had disputes, and why now? The Obama administration didn't do anything. George W. Bush didn't do anything. Why is this happening? And what is strange in the sense of the main media is, and I know why they do this, because they're afraid of any backlash or anything, but the whole point being that it rarely comes up, and I've been watching the news on this a lot, that there could be a political reason for this. Now they mention it in passing, they say, it could be a political, but they don't go into it. It's why really now? What's the motive and stuff? The motive, for anybody that's followed the news for the last 30 years, is simple. This is right out of the George W. Bush playbook. Okay, we've seen it already with Iraq. I'm going to go back to Iraq and George W. Bush. What they do is they put in fear that we're under imminent threat. They state that the threat is in the Iraq war was weapons of mass destruction. In Syria, it was chemicals. And it's been proven that these things, of course, never were there. So that was the excuse for going in. This time, it's the same thing. They're doing it here for the same reasons. Now, why did it happen with George W. Bush? He was at his lowest, on his first term, he was at 30% approval. And everybody thought, for sure, this guy's out next election and everything. What happens? The bombing, the 9/11, the bombing, and I won't go into that, the conspiracy or whatever of that, but that happens. All of a sudden, he becomes presidential. He becomes the Republican that, everybody in the Republican Party loves, strong leader. We need to retaliate. We need to go into war because we have intelligence, undenied intelligence, that we have a good reason to go into Iraq. We find out years later there were no weapons of mass destructions. Obviously, we went into a false war, which we're still in, and so their playbook basically for Republicans is to show strength and to show weakness in the Democratic Party. So the way they do this, obviously, is war. That's the only thing they understand. War, you go in, you have a war now. All of a sudden, the press is even talking about this. Is saying, well, can we really remove a president when we're at war? And so even the media is playing into this, and and the whole thing is to show that if a Democrat were to be elected, then we would be weak as a nation because Democrats are weak all the time. So the whole thing here today, where we're at, is exactly that same playbook. The Trump is unpopular, has been impeached, not going to be impeached in the Senate. We know that, but to get his numbers up, again, we've got this imminent threat, supposedly, that the intelligence community said we have no clue of what this threat is. They haven't been able to explain it, and even Republicans have come out against, this action, saying, we don't even know. Congress doesn't know what's going on. Then they go into a briefing, and the president and they're told that they shouldn't question this out of patriotism because we have great intelligence. But that's it. Nobody knows. Of course, anybody that's seen the patterns of the past knows that this is a bogus claim. And to do it now, why now? Well, why now is simple. Trump is facing a re-election. He's got lower numbers now. And this, again, is going to boost him because now he's showing himself as a strong Republican president. His base, of course, is going to go for it. And he might even use scare tactics that will convert Democrats to say, you know what, yeah, we need to vote for him because we don't want to change a president, especially a Democrat president, when in a time of war. And so the whole purpose, again, what we have to see in terms of independent California is that this is a repeat pattern that the Republicans use and they will use in the future all the time. And it shows us that talking about Iraq, which I've spoken about, which brought in the Patriot Act out of fear because people were scared and everything, really that was the beginning of the end of democracy. The Patriot Act is totally unconstitutional in its way, and it's still here. And Obama didn't get rid of it. They're not going to get rid of it here, and so they're going to keep going with that same playbook. And so my point being that if we do not get away from this sinking ship, as mentioned by many of the speakers before me, we will be in this pattern continuously. And Californians do not agree with war, do not agree with endless wars. It's not our values. We would rather use it for other, for Social Security, for healthcare, for all other reasons. And here we are again going to spend billions of dollars in a war that's unjustified. And again, Trump in his campaign promise was, no, I'm not for wars. I'm going to get the troops out. No. Now they're sending 3,000 troops over there. It's going to accumulate again. And here we go again. The cycle just keeps on going. So we need to bring this point to Californians that this will not end. We have a historical precedent of this. It's easy to see. The media is never going to talk about it because they're afraid to go with anything that's not mainstream. And so we need to talk about it. Somebody needs to bring it that, look, this is what happened. This is exactly the same scenario. exactly parallel scenario, years after this. And so I urge you all to go out there and make that argument already, without all the other arguments of the speakers, that we are in an endless loop of war and of having Republicans going to war just for their popularity. And I want to just end this because I ran into this, and it's funny that it would be a comedic scenario that points everything out, because through comedy, of course, you can put things out that you can't on the news. So the news things. But this is I ran into this probably 2 weeks after we talked with Marcus about that concept, and it hits a nail right on the head. So I want you guys to just watch this, entertaining, and
Well, it looks like 2020 is off to a great start. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. I'm just with you. 2020 is already the worst. The sky in Australia is blood red thanks to a climate crisis. Republicans are trying to rig the impeachment trial. The president is threatening war crimes on Twitter. We're less than a week into 2020. The world is like your friend who tells you this is the year he's going to quit drugs and take up yoga, and then on January 6th you see him trying to sell his mat for crack. I mean, we should have at least been able to come together and enjoy the Patriots getting knocked out of the playoffs.
Sad. It's for reflection.
oh God.
Nobody said.
I mean, finally, Bill Belichick was as sad as his outfit. For a guy supposed to be good at clock management, he always looks like he woke up 5 minutes before game time. Yeah, we couldn't even take 24 hours to savor that small victory because the president spent the weekend threatening war crimes against Iran after ordering the assassination of a top Iranian general, and then, in Orwellian fashion, claiming he did it to stop a war.
Breaking news this morning, the U.S. has carried out the assassination of a top Iranian military and intelligence commander. The president ordered this. It was carried out by drone last night in Iraq.
His name was Qasem Soleimani. He was Iran's top military commander.
I went to a State Department briefing today, a background briefing, and the officials basically said the ball's in Iran's court and we are trying to de-escalate. Actually, one official said this was an act of de-escalation.
We took action last night to stop a war. We did not take action to start a war.
Trump thinks we can't accuse him of rushing into a war if he reads his teleprompter super slowly. You can't just kill a top general of a sovereign nation and call it de-escalation. That's like getting drunk and driving your car into a Kmart and then telling the cops, I did it to stop my car. Trump and his allies are lying in the exact same ways the Bush administration lied us into a catastrophic war in Iraq nearly 17 years ago, and the exact same people are doing it. After the attack, Fox News decided to turn to their stable of lumpy white guys who've been wrong about everything. Lindsey Graham, the champion of the Iraq War, and former Bush officials and serial liars Ari Fleischer and Karl Rove. Why are these the best experts we can get? This is like doing a segment on organizing music festivals and interviewing Billy McFarland and Ja Rule. The same people are trotting out the same lies they did 17 years ago. For example, Vice President Mike Pence lied and tried to link Soleimani to 9/11 in a tweet that was not supported by the evidence. And if that sounds familiar to you, it's because it's right out of the playbook of George W. Bush and Donald Rumsfeld, who repeatedly linked Saddam Hussein to Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups without providing any evidence.
The reason I keep insisting that there was a relationship between Iraq and Saddam and Al-Qaeda, because there was a relationship between Iraq and Al-Qaeda.
There are reports that there is no evidence of a direct link between Baghdad and some of these terrorist organizations.
Reports that say that something hasn't happened are always interesting to me, because as we know, there are known knowns. There are things we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know. There are also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't know.
Excuse me, but is this an unknown unknown? I've got several unknowns, and I'm just wondering if this is an
I'm
unknown.
not gonna say which it is.
Oh, you're not gonna say? So it's unknown whether it's an unknown unknown. But one known that we do know is what Trump knows, which is a known unknown because he unknows what he doesn't know. Meaning we know he knows no knowns. It's amazing. It's amazing that we found a way to elect people who think these guys had the right idea. It's like if 17 years from now someone made a movie called Cats 2, this time with genitals. So Pence lied, just like Bush and Rumsfeld lied, that hey, at least this isn't the first time Mike Pence has been wrong about a disastrous war in the Middle East.
I am here to report, as the United States military confirmed in Iraq on Monday, weapons of mass destruction have been found in Iraq.
It's fitting that 16 years later Pence is telling the same lies because 16 years later he looks the exact same. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's just a stock photo businessman come to life. When he takes off his shirt, it says Getty Images across his chest. So the Trump administration tried to link Soleimani to 9/11. They also claimed they were stopping an imminent threat. But if that's true, they haven't presented any evidence of that threat to Congress or the public. In fact, a New York Times reporter tweeted that the evidence for such a threat was razor thin. And the Times also wrote that national security experts and even other officials at the Pentagon said they were unaware of anything drastically new about Iranian behavior in recent weeks. But that's not good enough for Fox and Friends host Ainsley Earhardt, who said today that we just have to trust the intelligence agencies.
So interesting that people are critical of the president's decisions, of our intelligence community's decisions, our generals' decisions.
More detail.
General Teo said, well, they can't have it. Everything can't be made public. We heard Pompeo over the weekend saying, everything that we have, the intelligence community has, he said, I ran the CIA at one point, we can't release everything. We can't release all of our intelligence information. We'll release as much as we can, but you just have to trust us, basically.
Oh, we just have to trust them? I'm sorry, but I'm not inclined to trust an administration that lies about everything, even the dumbest things. Let's not forget, this is the same guy who literally drew a circle on an official weather map in Sharpie to claim that Alabama was going to get hit by a hurricane, and then pretended he had no idea how it got there. Can you imagine if Trump actually tries to present some evidence against Iran? I have it right here, the top secret intelligence briefing that proves I was right. It says Iran bad right there. Right there. There you go. We've heard Fox and Friends, we have to trust our intelligence agencies. I wonder, though, if she felt the same way back in May when the intelligence agencies were investigating Trump. What? No, she didn't. Oh, and the next clip proves it? Oh, why are you telling me? You ruined the surprise. All right, well, let's just show it anyway.
There was a Fox News poll, and folks were asked how likely intelligence agencies like the FBI broke the law to investigate President Trump. Look at that. 58% said extremely, very, or somewhat, and only 31% said not at all. So that just shows you
add up the first three.
that's pretty scary that we can't trust the FBI.
What? We can't, but that lady on the news just a second ago said we can.
It's the same outfit.
Oh my
Are you
God, one of two things
serious?
is happening here. Either Trump supporters are self-serving hypocrites who defend intelligence agencies when they want to bomb other countries but attack them when they investigate the president's crimes, or Ainsley Earhardt has an evil twin. Now, if you're a Trump supporter out there, claiming anyone who opposes this act of war is siding with the enemy, let's just remember this is the same president who literally said he and Kim Jong-un, a brutal dictator who starves and tortures his own people, quote, fell in love because of Kim's beautiful letters. Trump actually said that about a brutal dictator. He sounds like a Southern belle meeting suitors at a cotillion. My dear Beauregard, I fell in love with you after your beautiful letters. I'm pretty sure most people hadn't even heard Soleimani's name until recently, and that includes Trump himself, who was asked about him in a radio interview in 2015 and clearly had no idea who he was.
Are you familiar with General Soleimani?
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Go ahead, give me a little, go ahead.
He runs the Quds forces.
Yes, okay, right.
Do you expect
I
him
think
to
the
be
Kurds, by the way, have been horribly mistreated by us.
No, not the Kurds, the Quds forces, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Quds forces, the bad guys.
Right.
Do you expect his behavior to
I
change
think
as a
it's
result?
Kurds.
I love Trump trying to pretend he knew who he was, even though he clearly didn't. Do you know General Soleimani? Yeah, no, I do. But I want to see if you know who he is. Clearly, this was a reckless act by an impulsive president who hasn't thought through any of the consequences. But a lot of people, including prominent Democrats, are also asking why now? Why would a president who's facing an impeachment trial and mounting evidence of his guilt suddenly start a war with Iran as he heads into an election year? I wonder if 2011 to 2012 Donald Trump had anything to say about that when it came to President Obama.
I say that he starts a war in Iran before the election, which will make it very hard for the Republicans to win. Okay? And I've said that and I predicted that. He doesn't talk to anybody. He'll start a war. Lives will be wasted for no reason.
I happen to think that the president is going to start a war with Iran. I think it'll be a short-term popular thing to do, and I think he's going to do that for political reasons.
Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective. So the only way he figures that he's going to get reelected, and as sure as you're sitting there, is to start a war with Iran. I believe that he will attack Iran sometime prior to the election because he thinks that's the only way he can get elected. Isn't it pathetic?
Yes, it is. The thing about Trump is that he never tells the truth about himself in the present, but he always tells the truth about himself like 10 years in advance. When he accuses people of crossing the border illegally, that means 10 years from now he's going to get caught climbing over his wall trying to flee to Mexico. Damn it! Oh, why'd we make it so dumb? So it's already terrifying that the president is impulsively lurching into an unjust and immoral war, and then on Sunday he decided to go even further and threaten war crimes against Iran with a truly psychotic tweet that he genuinely thought counted as some sort of official legal document. Here's the very real tweet the President of the United States sent out on Sunday. These media posts will serve as notification to the United States Congress that should Iran strike any U.S. person or target, the United States will quickly and fully strike back, and perhaps in a disproportionate manner. Such legal notice is not required, but is given nevertheless. That's right. The same guy who brought you such tweets as Robert Pattinson should dump Kristen Stewart, but I never seen a thin person drinking Diet Coke, now thinks his tweet served as official legal notice to Congress. I don't think this tweet counts as legal notice to commit an act of war, but I do think it counts as legal notice to have you committed. That tweet sounds like something that could be scrawled on the walls of a psych ward. Let this serve as a legal notice that I know you're hiding pills in my applesauce, and I will find them and sue you for malpractice. By the way, threatening a disproportionate response is a war crime, just like when Trump tweeted the previous day that if Iran strikes any Americans or American assets, we have targeted 52 Iranian sites, some at a very high level and important to Iran and the Iranian culture. And those targets and Iran itself will be hit very fast and very hard. First of all, it's not reassuring when the president tweets in all caps like a lunatic who sees his ex-girlfriend posting photos of herself with another guy and texts her at 3 a.m. Who is Brad? Why are you in Cabo? I will hit him very fast and very hard. A war with Iran is unjust and immoral, cause mass death and suffering, and destabilize the region and the world. And Trump obviously hasn't thought about or doesn't care about those consequences because by all accounts, he made this decision impulsively to the surprise of his own top military officials. The New York Times reported that they were stunned, flabbergasted, and alarmed when Trump chose the option of killing Soleimani. Apparently, Trump's military advisors put the option on one PowerPoint slide to make the other option seem more reasonable, not actually thinking he would pick it. One briefing slide shown to Trump listed several follow-up steps the U.S. could take, among them targeting Soleimani. Unexpectedly, Trump chose that option. Did Donald Trump do the unexpected instead of the reasonable? Did you guys not get a briefing on him? You can't expect a reasonable choice from the guy who stared into an eclipse and when his umbrella got caught, just left it on the stairs. Congress must do everything in its power to stop an unjust and immoral war with Iran that will have disastrous consequences. That's why thousands of protesters took to the streets over the weekend in cities across the country to say no to war with Iran. We have an impulsive, lawless president threatening war crimes who thinks his tweets count as official legal documents. You gotta ask,
Isn't it pathetic?
this has been a closer look.
That's it. That was just to make the